Hello everybody, welcome back to another video on the ChaddyTheChump channel. And wow, what a weekend it is for boxing. It is absolutely stacked to the brim. An early Christmas present of a weekend, and then there's a late Christmas present the next week, which obviously we're going to talk about that next week. But we are going to be talking about 4 shows taking place this weekend, and they're all very good shows with very decent fights. I mean, some worse than others, but still, I mean, you can't complain when there's extra fight nights, because, you know, we're used to getting 1 a week. 2, you know, if it's not a show clash, is pretty good. But then, you know, when you get into the 3s and the 4s, it becomes very exciting. So, let's talk about these shows. So, the first show we're going to be talking about is my favourite fight this weekend, and that is Callum Simpson versus Troy Williamson for the European title and British and Commonwealth. It is a very tasty fight. It's going to be a good matchup. If you watch Troy Williamson's last fight, that was a war. Callum Simpson always delivered. He delivered in Barnsley against Ivan Zuko last time out to win the European title. And it's a good night. It's in Leeds. You know, there's going to be like around 8,000 there in Leeds, all in support of Callum Simpson, but still, it is going to be very loud in there. And it's a good fight as well. It's Boxer's second show on the BBC, which, you know, the last show, I would say, was pretty decent, and this one is on BBC 3, so not as high up as the BBC 2, but it is still on the BBC, which means it is going to get a lot of viewers, and it's going to be a very good fight. The undercard is pretty good as well. The next show we are going to be talking about is all the way in a different continent, but it's a Matchroom boxing card, and it is Craig Richards versus Dan Aziz in Africa, Ghana specifically. I think it's in a 30,000 seater sort of stadium, which is pretty impressive. And Matchroom are in Ghana, you know. It's pretty wild. You know, when it was kind of rumoured, I thought it was going to be AJ. I mean, AJ is fighting this weekend, obviously, against Jake Paul. I'm doing a video on that, so make sure you watch that. But I wasn't expecting it to be a non-AJ and a non-pay-per-view. It is still a good bout between 2 African fighters, Craig Richards and Dan Aziz. A light heavyweight matchup, and Craig Richards, obviously, you know, his main loss was to Willie Hutchinson, which was still a close fight, and Dan Aziz was actually with Boxer, now he's with Matchroom. He has obviously taken losses to Boatsi and also to Lewis Edmondson, so it isn't the highest class of light heavyweight fights, but it's still a good one. The undercard, pretty decent. It's got some African names who, you know, aren't probably too familiar in the UK scene, but there are some African titles on the line. Leo Atang on the undercard, obviously he's an upcoming heavyweight that Matchroom have, and they're going to be building him up even more to possibly, you know, become sort of the next Moses Atoma, or maybe even fight Atoma in the future. I mean, if he continues that pathway, that is probably going to be the likelihood. But overall, it is a decent show, obviously clashing with Boxer, but I'm not sure if the main events will exactly clash. Hopefully they don't, but whichever you pick should be a decent one. Now we're going to move over to the less professional side of boxing, and it is again in a different continent, in Asia, in Dubai, and it is Misfits Boxing Mania. Right, we did a video on this, I think it was a few months ago, 1 or 2 months ago when it got announced, and it is here now. Andrew Tate taking on Chase Demore, and it is on Rumble, which, you know, we haven't actually talked about this, but, you know, it's on Rumble pay-per-view, so it's a bit interesting. I think it's £30, but I think you can get like a discount or something. I haven't properly seen what the price is on it, but it's away from DAZN. I think it's not on DAZN, probably because of Andrew Tate, I would guess, but I'm not certain about anything like that. However, let's just talk about the show. Headlined by Andrew Tate fighting on Misfits. Obviously, it's an interesting revelation. He's fighting Chase Demore. I think this could be a close fight. Depends how good Andrew Tate is. It might not be a close fight at all, and Andrew Tate will wash through him, or it'll be a good fight. They've got kind of similar styles, and by similar, I mean both got not so, you know, technically accurate styles that you would see normally in a boxing ring, but instead, you know, a little bit different. Obviously, Andrew Tate being a kickboxer probably warrants that different style, whereas Chase Demore probably just lack of experience. However, it should be pretty interesting. Undercard's alright. Tony Ferguson's on it. Dean the Great as well is on it, I'm pretty sure, against Mando Vargas, which is again a decent fight. That Dean the Great is actually a pretty good fighter to watch. He could probably be, you know, sort of in the pro scene a little bit. I'm not saying anything stupid, but, you know, he's probably like a British level sort of fighter, to be honest. But obviously, you're getting the money at Misfits, you'll probably stay at Misfits. But overall, a pretty decent show in Dubai. I'm not sure whether I'm going to watch it, especially since the other shows are clashing, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. And the last show we're going to be talking about is on Sunday, and it is another one in Africa, this time in Lagos, Nigeria, and it is Okole versus Ebenezer Tete. Now, if you recognise the name, you might do, because Ebenezer Tete fought Dillian White. He also fought Fraser Clark, and now he's taking on Okole. Now, many have complained about this opponent because, to be honest, you know, there's no way Okole isn't winning this fight, to be honest. Maybe he's kind of a knockover job. Well, Tete is a knockover job for Lawrence Okole, maybe to make him seem like a more interesting fighter if he were to get the knockout. Obviously, Tete, you know, his chances aren't very good, and they'll be looking at Okole to just get a knockout. It is kind of a Queensborough show, but I think it's also mainly promoted by Balmoral Promotions, which are like an African promotion. So, you know, it's kind of just, you know, Queensborough put some of the fighters on it. Tony Yoka is also fighting in the co-main event against Corte, who lost to Nelson Heiser. So again, more or less of a knockover job to, you know, kind of boost Yoka's sort of position. And to be fair, it's probably a good idea by Queensborough. Just get these guys in here, get them on a show, and then give them the proper fights in 2026. Ahoga as well on the undercard against Conor Ben's, I think, cousin or something. I don't know. He's got the last name Ben. So that might be interesting as well. It's a good little show, a cheeky show on Sunday to watch, which should be pretty decent. And yeah, you can't complain about a Sunday show. But anyways, guys, that was all the shows that are on this weekend. It is absolutely stacked. And obviously, in this one, we didn't even talk about AJ versus Jake Paul. I've made a completely separate video on that, so make sure you watch that when that is out. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.